Well, let's get started, and people will join. So we are recording. It'll just show you if you speak. I would love to see your faces as we do the workshop, but I also understand sometimes you just don't want to be recorded. So do what you feel comfortable with. Hey, Karen.
Hi.
Good to see you. I'm Ariana, and my business is Lloyd Collective. And in my business, I'm a social worker, but I started this business to help other clinicians start businesses. And I run an 8-week private practice program, which opens up tomorrow for our January 5th cohort. So you're all welcome to join. Tonight's workshop is on money and private practice. And one of my favorite people to talk about money and business with is Andrea. So I'm really glad Andrea's back. We did this last year, and it was our very first fundraising workshop. And so I'm excited to talk about what's changed in the last year and what we've learned doing business over the last year. Andrea, I'm going to introduce you, but you can correct me if I get things wrong.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Andrea runs a private practice, and I'll share her website, I guess, in our intro. I guess I could share that right now. We have a PowerPoint. So let me well, I want everyone to see each other for a minute longer. Hi, Noha. Okay. Yeah, no problem. But Andrea runs a private practice called Uniquely You Counseling. She has a gorgeous website. One of Andrea's missions is to get more Black therapists in private practice. Is that's still accurate, right, Andrea? Yeah.
Yep.
And so she does some consultation around it. She does a lot of trainings like a Lewis and Clark or various agencies to make them more anti-racist or anti-oppressive. And had a great interview with OPB. Was that last year or this year? A few times, I feel like.
I think there was one last year, one this year.
Okay. Yeah. So, and those are on your website too.
Yep.
So you do a lot of really great work. Tonight, Andrea is going to talk about what business has been like over the last year, the changes that she's made now that she's been in practice for a while, and then where you're headed business-wise. We want you to feel comfortable talking about money. I realize money is often attached to shame, worthiness, whatever identities we were given younger about class or about a million different things. So we're going to do our best to be sensitive and attuned, but if things come up, if you feel comfortable sharing them, you're welcome to. And if you want to email me later, you're welcome to. I also love Lindsay Bryan Podman's work. She's at Mind Money Balance, and she talks a lot about the concept of like money shame and money wounds. But just in general, I want you all to feel comfortable being super transparent about money. That I think Andrea and I we're both really into that as well. And about people making as much as they want to make in order to live a really healthy and satisfying life and be connected to the people around them in really meaningful ways. So I think that's my intro spiel. I am going to share my screen, and then Andrea is going to walk us through the first few concepts. If you have questions, feel free to interrupt us or just put them in the chat.
Oh. You're muted one more time. And we'd like to hear you.
There we go. How's that?
Perfect.
Okay. All right. So Andrea, let's see. Is it going to let me click through? Hold on 1 second. You're going to stop. We'll get it back. Oh, I think it's because they went full screen. Let's try this again. While I'm doing this, if you want to, in the chat box, put one thing that you're really hoping we cover tonight, or like a question you already know you have going into it. That would be really wonderful. And I'm going to
add some questions, and while she's getting the PowerPoint taken care of, hopefully I can answer them.
We're going to try this again. I know.
One more time.
Yeah. Okay. Slideshow.
Woo.
I got that page. Nope. Okay. One more time again. Oh, I know what it is. I was at the end of the slideshow. Okay.
Yep, there you go. That will do it.
All right, so this is us. Check out Andrea's website. It's really beautiful. I often refer to Andrea's website for like really good use of images or identifying your niche or just being very transparent in how you set up your business. So Andrea, I'm going to let you take it away, and I'm just going to try and click along with what you're saying.
Okay. So, hi everybody. My name is Andrea. Like she said, but I have a practice here over on Gleason. My practice is called Uniquely You Counseling. Primarily, I serve BIPOC individuals who are maybe exploring or struggling with workplace racism, and folks who want to explore the connection between mental health and oppression and racism. My practice primarily serves transplants to Portland. I don't have many Portland folks, even though I am from Portland. Oftentimes I have people come to me who maybe are struggling with the nuances of racism that derives in Portland versus other places. And so my practice, I see individuals, I see couples, I do clinical supervision. So I kind of do it all. We're going to briefly talk about some general cost. So when we think about private practice, the first thing people always ask me is, how much does it start? How much does it cost to start? And I think that it's important that we recognize that it's dependent on the person, right? That everybody's startup costs are going to be different because they're things that you need. The things that I needed in the beginning are not going to be the things maybe that Mary Kevin needs or Jonathan needs. It's going to be really up to you. So we're going to kind of go through this. First thing that you need is a business. That's like hands down. You need to have some type of business. So for some clinicians, they get an LLC. I personally have an LLC, but I do know other clinicians in private practice who do not have an LLC, who utilize themselves as a sole practitioner instead of a business. If a business is something that you want, I always suggest that you do it before you decide to get all of the other pieces like a business bank account. I find that having a business can be helpful when I attempt to do some of the other things, when I attempt to get out of maybe my client work and I start to do trainings or I move into consultations. So one of the first places you can start is getting an LLC, but it's not a have to. And I think that that's an important piece to remember, that oftentimes there's this belief that there's have-tos. There's the right way and the wrong way. And I know clinicians who don't have LLCs, and I know clinicians who do. So it's really dependent on you. I think that they're historically within the counseling field, I've heard many, many times, right, that you get an LLC in case you get sued, they sue the LLC and they don't sue you. I think that that is a belief of protection, which is always not accurate. And so one of the things that you have to remember, right, is that there's no 100% protection of anything. That's just the risk. Having a business means that there's going to be risk. And oftentimes I get people who kind of give that spiel around, I want an LLC, so I'm protected. And while you are protected, the thing that is going to protect you most is your liability insurance. So while you have an LLC, we also want you to have liability insurance. I make the suggestion that every person in private practice has to, I mean, that's a have to, you have to have liability insurance. But on top of that, if you are in an agency, I also encourage people to have liability insurance. You need a city, oh, you want to jump in?
No, I'm just agreeing.
Okay. So yes, if you are at an agency currently and thinking about joining a private practice, having liability insurance is what protects you. So while it could be something around the agency is having trouble or being sued, but this would be for you. Another thing that you want to remember about liability insurance is that in case you ever get yourself in a predicament, they pay for your lawyer and you will want a lawyer. So having liability insurance is important. Also, city business license. You need one of those. This is what you pay the city and the state when you decide to get a business license. That is also a have to. Photography, I don't know if that's a have to. I didn't really have any pictures taken until about 6 months ago. Until 6 months ago, I was using my photo from my agency that when I left, I used that photo. So for some people, I think that it's important if that is the image that you want to display, if there's something that you really want to market towards, for having photographs could be helpful, but it's also something I never had. And I think that it's also dependent on your budget. Things like office equipment. When we're in the telehealth world, all of these things that I paid for in my office now don't matter. I bought the fancy couch and the really nice folders, and I wanted to have nice pillows, and now we're in telehealth. And so really when you're thinking about office supplies, what you're talking about is your EHR. What are you utilizing to bill and do clinical notes? There are many types of EHRs. You can use Simple Practice. Some people use Office Ally, or you could still go old school and do paper charts. There are many clinicians who still do paper charts, if that's what you would like to do. So it's really dependent on what you need. I think that for me personally, why I did Simple Practice is because I really struggle with numbers. That's something I struggle with, even though I don't struggle much with money, I struggle with numbers. And so Simple Practice has a really good way that if you're going to bill insurance, that it pops everything in the claims for you. So that's why I use Simple Practice, but I also know clinicians who use Office Ally. That can be really helpful. If you're gonna get an office, which again, isn't a have to, you don't have to have an office. In the beginning, I rented an office. It doesn't mean that you have to go and sign a lease, but if you're thinking about getting an office, what I always encourage people to do is to sublet an office. If you want to get out of your house and go do therapy, you can always sublet an office. I sublet my office to new clinicians, so I have a clinician in here who utilizes it on days that I don't have. And it can be really helpful to get a space and to build as you get clients. If you don't have many clients, you don't need an office for 7 days a week. If you don't have many clients, you probably don't even need a whole day. When I started with a half day. It was 1.5 day. I wanted it from 8 a.m. to 2. And as I got more clients, then I took a full day. And then I took a second day. But as I made more money, it meant that my space got to get bigger and I got more things. So if you're gonna get an office, I always suggest that you sublet. There are many counselors out there right now who have full-time offices who would love to sublet if you are interested. And it also can be nice sometimes just to have a place to go and do your paperwork if you need it. And then the last part is courses and training. So this would be important if you're finding a hard time either setting up or you're having a hard time with different aspects of therapy, like what interventions am I supposed to use now that I'm not at my agency? Or what is my treatment plan supposed to look like now that I don't have the treatment plan? Trainings, courses can be really helpful if there's a particular place that you're finding that you're struggling. For some people, it could be really helpful to find somebody like the 8-week course to kind of help guide you through starting a private practice. I support clinicians in starting a private practice, but what I do is far different from what Lloyd Collective does, right? So Lloyd Collective walks you through that process. What I do is offer you clinical supervision and help you as we're moving through it. And so if it is that you're feeling like you're overwhelmed by money or how to get an EHR or what is my psychology today going to say, how am I going to market to people? Doing something like Lloyd Collective could be helpful. And what I used in the beginning was a website called Practice of the Practice. Does anybody know of him? Joe is his name. And he has some really great information on there and some really great experiences of other clinicians, not in Oregon, who maybe are starting a private practice. And there are just nuances, right? That as you start a private practice, things that I didn't know 3 years ago, now today I can share differently with somebody else, and maybe they don't get caught in the same holes that I got caught into. And so one of the things that's important about the courses and training is that you recognize maybe the places that you're struggling and utilize the training and the courses for that area, right? And so because in the beginning of private practice, we're all tight on money. So really being clear on the things that you need.
Yeah. Any questions about this slide?
Any questions? And it can be anything. Like, who took my photos?
Yeah, you have really amazing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Next slide. So Andrea, at 5:30, I forgot to mention at 5:30, we're going to chat briefly about Allison SU services, and Louise is going to pop in then. So yeah.
Okay. So we're going to pop into monthly costs. So startup costs are different from monthly costs, right? So starting up is about getting your LLC, getting your liability insurance. Looking for a photographer. Yeah. I will add the email to the chat at the 30 after. I will make sure. So getting your LLC, getting your liability insurance, that's startup. And then you have your monthly costs. And one of the things I like to tell supervisees is that your monthly costs in the beginning will only be just a few things. And as time goes on, you may get more, right? And so the first thing that you need to get for your monthly costs and what you're going to pay for is your EHR. So generally that's about $50 a month, right? Your EHR, you get all of the things that you need in there. It has documentation in there. If you're confused about what a consent form looks like, they have those in the EHR. Oftentimes I hear people are like, how am I going to make a consent? You buy the EHR and it will be in there so that you don't have to do that all on your own. Also making sure that you read through it, adding your own pieces, and having, if you would like, having a lawyer look at it to ensure that it protects you. But your EHR is the first thing that you're going to pay for monthly. And of course, you can add different pieces to your EHR to make it more expensive or less expensive, but generally $50 a month.
The other thing with that, Andrea, is like you had mentioned, some people do paper and pen. So you could just do a one-time expense of buying a lockbox, and then you wouldn't actually have this as a monthly cost. Most people move that way towards the EHR just because it simplifies things. But in the beginning, a lot of people just do paper and pen and lock it up.
Mm-hmm. And I still have mine locked up from the beginning, you know, because that long-term rule. So if that's what you want to do, it could be really easy. You also need a phone and an email. You need ways that people can access you. So phones are really dependent on what you would like to do. Some people have an actual different phone. So they have their own cell phone and then a different phone that they use. Some people use Google Voice. It is really up to you and what you are comfortable with. One of the hard parts that you run into, right, is that when you're using your phone, it has to be HIPAA compliant. And if it's not HIPAA compliant or follow through in the HIPAA compliance, then we need to notify the people who you are talking on through your phone that it's not HIPAA compliant. So that would be one thing that you need is a phone. Google Voice, good option, as long as you're telling people that it's not HIPAA compliant. Email. I always suggest that you actually get an email that isn't Andrea@gmail.com, because one of the things that can happen that I've had experience in now that I'm a few years in is that clients lose your emails. They didn't see that email, or it got stuck in their junk drawer, or they didn't recognize it was their therapist because it just said Andrea. And so one of the things that can happen is that when clients lose your emails, it's always easier. I always just tell people, search uniquely you in your email box and you'll find me. So that can be helpful. Website. You're going to have to pay your monthly fees on your website. I believe my monthly fees are like less than $30 for my website. It's a really easy thing. I have a few websites though, so that could also be why it's a little bit more expensive. I always like to tell people for your website to make sure that it is representative of you. Your website is about you. When clients are showing up to your website, they want to know you. There's two things that they want to know. Who's this person that I'm going to pay so much money to? And how much money am I paying this person? That is generally when people are looking for therapists, what they're looking for. And so being really clear in your website helps later on when you're in consultation, because people know what to expect. You want your website to draw you in. There are people who are out there doing websites. I personally used Squarespace, and I had a friend help me. I had a friend who's a little bit savvier with things like making websites, help me through the website. But if you happen to be savvy, if you can use TikTok, you can make your website. If you have the attention span to stay on TikTok, you can literally make your website. It just takes a lot of attention, and you need to be somebody who is detail oriented, which I am not. So your website, probably less than $30. Lease you're going to pay for monthly, depending on how much you decide, how many hours you decide to get. Marketing would be things like Psychology Today. I would be Portland Therapy. I'm also on Therapy for Black Girls. And so it is how much you want to market out there. How much do you want your name out there? It's kind of dependent on the cost. Generally, most inquiries come through Psychology Today because it is one of the things that is known nationwide. But here in Portland, we have other listservers and advertisements that you can use instead of Psychology Today, because I know some people aren't comfortable with that. Office expenses, EHR. Oh, Therapy Den. Yes, that's the other one. Office expenses, mainly your EHR. I also tell people, like, you're gonna need just a few things. And so also, like, having some paper, get a few pens, just a few things that you're going to need, but it doesn't need to be fancy. Nobody's gonna see it but you. So it's about your comfort level. Payment and processing fees. So if you use Simple Practice, it is already in there, but if you were going to use something like Square, there is going to be a payment and processing fee, a percentage of how much the client pays. And then supervision and consultation. I always suggest for people starting private practice that if you don't need supervision, that you at least get consultation. It is a really big transition to go from being in an agency that is built in wraparound services and being in an agency that is doing everything they can to not be sued. You are now going into your own. And so there is a shift that comes with that, and questions that we in graduate school didn't learn, probably didn't learn in internship. So making sure that you have somebody to consult with to ask those little questions so that you don't get stuck with then 15 questions. So consultation, supervision, very important, especially those who are newly in private practice and newly licensed or newly in the field. You want to make sure that you're getting that. And then your annual cost, your liability insurance. I would believe that mine's around $350, I think. And I have interns on it. So for other people, it won't be probably as expensive, but liability insurance, if there's any money that you are going to spend, get the liability insurance and click the thing. If there's an extra, there's a piece oftentimes on liability insurance will say telehealth, click that. It's $10 more, but click it. If you have associates, interns, click that one too. If you're going to a new office and it's not your office and you have clients coming to that office, also making sure that your liability coverage covers your property because it's not your office, and in case somebody gets hurt. And so it's called the slip and fall part of your liability insurance. And so I think that sometimes we can have some eagerness. So really making sure that you're reading through each of those pieces and seeing if it applies to your private practice. You have your license that you got to pay per month, for yearly CEUs that you need to pay for. But one of the things that's really important about CEUs that now that you're in private practice is that there can be that networking piece. That oftentimes when you're consulting with people and you recognize that maybe I need a little bit more help in laws and ethics, or maybe I need a little bit more help in understanding how my theoretical orientation is going to translate into actual interventions, then that's when the CEUs would come into play. So you get to specify them based on what you need, versus when we're an agency and it's everybody goes to motivational interviewing. Now you get to have to pay, but you get to pick for which CEUs that you want. And then your LLC, you have to renew it. And so you have to pay for it. I will tell you that one year I forgot to renew it and it was only a $50 fee. So just being aware that as we start in the business world, many people forget things because nobody's perfect. And generally when you forget things, usually the person on the other side of the phone has talked to 15 other business owners that day who forgot things. And so just making sure that you are reading your emails as they come through.
Thanks, Andrea. Any questions before we move on to the next part? So we're going to pause right now just briefly. These fundraisers or these workshops are always offered free. And generally, Andrea and I charge, a certain amount for consultation. But we're donating our time in support of, today we're doing it in support of Owl's Nest Youth Services. And part of the goal is to invite people in for wealth, what I think of as wealth redistribution. And I know none of us are thinking of ourselves as wealthy, or maybe you are, but it's more just like if we have the power to generate money, then there's an opportunity to redistribute it to people who don't have that kind of power or privilege or opportunity. That's how I make sense of it in my mind. And I'm not saying that works for everyone, but that is what we do here. So I encourage people to donate as little or as much as they want, and my business matches the funds. And you can see, Andrea and I started this, we did the very first one a year ago, and we donated to join. And you can check and see, I think now we're over 6,500 in doing these. And it's just exciting to see how much change can happen just from donating a little bit. So I'm going to, let's see, Louise, if you want to tell us just for 1 minute, and I know that's tricky to do, but 1 minute, what the funds would go towards. And then actually the way we're doing it tonight is Owl's Nest Youth Services is actually a very new nonprofit, so they only take check. So what we're going to do tonight is have you send it to my Lloyd Collective Business Venmo, and then I'll send a check in the mail tomorrow to Owl's Nest Youth Services. So I appreciate you trusting me in advance, and I'm happy to show you the receipts in case you feel nervous, because to some of you, I'm a stranger. But Louise, I would love to hear, just briefly about Owl's Nest Youth Services, and then where the money from tonight specifically will go.
Yeah, thank you for having me again.
Yeah, thanks for joining, and thanks a million to Bianca for suggesting it.
Yeah, definitely. So the Owl's Nest, we provide transitional housing and independent living skills to youth between the ages of 18 and 25. We actually prefer that youth be 6 months to their 25th birthday when they initiate services here, because 25 is our cutoff. And we just help them get kind of integrated back into the community, get connected to community resources. And we are focused on youth of color. We're one of the only providers in Multnomah County that focuses on youth of color. And so our case managers here help them kind of find jobs, they help them find housing, they help them get into services if they need such things such as mental health or substance abuse treatment. And any funding that we receive goes towards helping youth when they initially get here. They typically don't have any benefits, so they need food. We provide each of our youth with a hygiene packet. And it comes with soap, it comes with a loofah and a couple of bath towels, as well as face towels, shaving cream, razors, deodorant, just a toothbrush, toothpaste, just a few of those things to kind of get them started, make them feel comfortable. And then any other funding that we are not utilizing for that purpose goes towards our capital fundraising. We are trying to get 9 tiny houses on our property. So that helps youth with long-term supportive housing. So once they leave our program of 120 days, they are able to then live in the tiny house for 6 months. And so right now we have 1 tiny home, and we are trying to get a second one, fairly soon, because we are getting quite the wait list in terms of youth that need placement.
It's amazing. And you started this 2 years ago, right? I think I saw that on the Oregon Youth Authority website.
Yes, we started getting all the planning together and building the nonprofit and all the entity types of requirements, and that took about a year. And then it took another year, to kind of get started in terms of making sure we met all the requirements for youth to live in the house. And a lot of that was delayed due to COVID. So it was quite the challenge, but we finally got started. Here we are.
Yeah, thanks so much, Louise. And you're a social worker.
So, I am a licensed clinical social worker.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love seeing people take a concept and then just create something really important from it. So thanks so much for being here tonight. Were people able to find me on Venmo, or do I need to give you my clinical Venmo?
Yes.
Okay. I just realized that I may not even have a Lloyd Collective Venmo.
I'm like, I found you, but I didn't find Lloyd Collective.
Okay, you can.
Oh wait, I found your business.
Okay, is it the Ariana Lloyd LCSW one?
Yes.
Okay, got it. I wasn't really thinking about doing it this way tonight, so I apologize for the confusion. Okay, yeah, if you want to send it to my clinical business Venmo, then that'll work. All right, thank you so much. Louise, will you email me the mailing address? And for all of you who have businesses or who are going to start a business, be sure to count this in your tax deductions. Any donation you make, of course, is tax deductible. So what that means is they just subtract that from your net profit, and they say you don't owe us taxes on this amount of money, which is important. The less obvious, we could go into a lot there, but it's important to deduct. Okay, any other questions about finding me on Venmo so that I can send it to Louise?
Louise, if people want to know more about Owl's Nest, where do they find you?
We have a Facebook page, and we also have a website.
Oh, you do have a website. Oh, I did see it. Yeah, do you mind putting it in the chat, Louise? And your email address too?
Yep.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, Leslie, you still can. You can write it off. Yeah. Yep. Good question. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, make sure you let me know the amount. I'll see it later, like I mentioned, but then we can add it up in the group as well. And then a reminder that at the end, Andrea and I are doing a raffle. We're raffling off a consultation with each of us and also 5 coffee gift cards. Mostly just to say congrats for making it through this year, because it's kind of a crazy year. Mm-hmm. And all of you here made it through. Okay. All right, so I wanted to move on And I wanted to say briefly again, if you want to know more about Lloyd Collective, feel free to message me. And I think I already mentioned that we have 2 cohorts starting in January, and those will be setting up your practice. And honestly, the biggest benefit, there's a lot of ways to set up a practice, and you can DIY it, which is what I did. And the biggest benefit of DIY is you save a lot of money. The drawback is you take much longer to actually start earning a decent income. Most people then do it like, I think, 6 to 9 months. It takes much longer. So the benefit of jumping in a program, mine or someone else's, is you set it up properly the first time instead of kind of having to go back and fix things, and you just start earning faster. And ideally in a more aligned way in community as well, versus like, let me just figure it out this other way, which is, there's no harm in doing it either way. It's what your preference is and what works for you.
I DIY'd mine. DIY'd it from the beginning.
Yeah.
Used every resource that I've ever had and every family member to help. So yes, it is okay to DIY and ask people to help and to use the things you need.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the main goal is to start your business.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what feels like, hey, this is what I need to do and where I need to be. Okay. I am going to share on setting fees. And this is, if you've worked with me before, which some...
You're muted. One more time.
All right. This is one of my favorite spreadsheets. And I learned about thinking about it this way from my business mentor, Annie Schuessler, who's the Rebel therapist. And she has a really great podcast if you want to learn more about business. So this is what I do with people, and this is what I encourage people to think. If you're wondering about adding up those costs that Andrea and I just talked about, on this link, if you enter in your information at the bottom, it'll send you a spreadsheet. I created that just says, here's all the expenses and here's what they look like. You're going to take those numbers and you're going to go in and set your fees. And likely you'll just be doing these top 2 offers. And later you can start thinking about group therapy or workshops. What I encourage people to do is have a number in mind. So you know where you're headed, and you know that where you're headed is actually the right business model for you. I put this in my email the other day, but I give us a 40 work week year to account for other things that can come up. The other thing you want to do is, in addition to your operating costs, which is what Andrea explained, you also have taxes you want to make sure you can cover, and then just whatever your cost of living is. So we're just going to talk about this one today, but what I also encourage is for every single person that you see, that if you're charging something different, that you're going to set that in there as an offer. So if you have 10 different people and you're offering them 10 different prices, those are 10 different offers. So you're going to see pretty quickly you actually want to simplify your business model, just so your brain doesn't have to remember what to charge people. And then what you're going to notice is that whatever you charge for your fee, let's say you have 20 people every week, you see them, 20 people and you see them every week, you're charging 100. That quite quick, you can see the calculations here. If you want to go down and you want to start pretty low, that puts you at 60. If you want to do 150, that's going to put you at 120. So knowing quickly what you need to make is helpful, and also tells you, just getting this number clear tells you what you can offer sliding scale wise. You'll see the formulas in these ones are different than the ones up here. Well, you'll see that later, but that's because doing a group therapy offering ends up, eventually, if you price it right, it gives you a higher number per hour, and doing a workshop is going to give you the highest number per hour. So eventually you'll start with, those top 2 offers. That's a simple way to start, and a simple way to kind of wrap your mind around how a business works, how it feels to take money from people directly when maybe you've never done that. I know I hadn't. And then eventually you'll start experimenting with how many hours a week do I want to be face-to-face with someone? How much do I want to earn per hour? What's all this looking like? I could honestly run a whole workshop on this because I love it so much. But we're going to talk a little bit about this later because Andrea and I did this a year ago, maybe October or November. And then Andrea shifted her business model to reflect some of like what came from that. And so Andrea's going to share on that. So let me get back to the PowerPoint just really quickly here. Okay. We did this part. Let's see. Okay, so what Andrea and I wanted to share was what we changed with our businesses. Yeah. Go ahead, Andrea.
Is it supposed to show the PowerPoint? Because right now we're seeing your setting fees.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Well, while you're getting that ready, let me just briefly talk about setting fees. From that, and one of the things that she pointed out that I really want to make clear is that if you are doing sliding scale, it is important that you determine what your sliding scale fee is. Oftentimes in the beginning, what new therapists do and what I did was how much, and they say, I think I can swing like $50 every session. Okay, right? So it's really important that you're really clear on what your sliding scale fee is and how you determine what your sliding scale fee is, instead of it just being based on how well that consultation went. You want to make sure that you have guidelines.
Yeah, most therapists' reflex is to offer a very low fee because there's a lot of compassion and you're very aware of oppression and other things. But you want to make sure that it actually fits with your overall model. And you can still be incredibly generous with what you earn and then what you give away, but also very intentional with it. All right, Andrea. So what did you implement over the last year that changed your business?
So last year, we sat down and we did the spreadsheet and we figured out what are the things that I needed to do. This year, 2021, I focused on infrastructure. So I focused from taking my DIY therapy practice to forming it into an actual business that is a group practice. So that took many different pieces. But one of the first things it did was it took me transferring my business to an S Corp. Does anybody know what an S Corp is? No. Okay. Well, I didn't either. So what an S Corp is it is a formation of your business. And the reason why oftentimes clinicians, as they get bigger in their practice, move to an S Corp is because our net gross income can be very different because we don't have a lot of monthly fees. To start our businesses, really all we need is us and now a computer. We don't have a lot of fees. And so there are not a lot of tax deductions coming out of your business, because really what you're having is you see 5 people in one day and they all pay $100. You just made $500 in that day. And really the money that went out that day was maybe your EHR and your liability insurance, and it maybe came out to $20 for that day. So you put out, you spent $20, but you made $500. And because of that difference, what can happen is that you get taxed a lot. There's often a big tax because you're making so much money and nothing's really going out. And so one of the things that I did this year, the best thing I ever did was to get a bookkeeper and an accountant. I have a bookkeeper, an accountant, and a biller. And my bookkeeper and accountant, what we did is we moved my business to an S Corp. And now what the best part about an S Corp is in the beginning, when you're in your LLC, you have all your money dropping into your business account, right? So everybody who pays you that $500, it drops into your business account. You just made $500 one day. Awesome, right? But that $500, 30% of that is actually going to your taxes. And so what it does instead is it drops it all into your business account. But because I'm an S Corp, my business is the S Corp, and I am the owner and an employee of my business. And so my business actually pays me a paycheck. And that paycheck is based on the numbers that we had worked on and the numbers that I need coming in to sustain me. This is about my personal living. So this is how I pay my mortgage, how I pay my car payment. That is, the paycheck pays me. But at the same time, because I'm the business owner under my S Corp, I also take out dividends from my business. So what happens is when I'm getting paid, you know, that $500 that I made that day, I'm getting paid that through my paycheck. There are less taxes because it doesn't look like I just dropped $500 into my bank account, right? Because it disperses it. So one of the things that I did this year was to really look at the structure of my business and how I could sustain this long term. And moving to an S Corp was one of the things that helped me not only personally, but professionally. Because when you have this money dropping into your business account, it can be really anxiety provoking, right? All of a sudden you have like a big sum and then you don't. And so it's really important for me, what I noticed is that I was used to a paycheck. I had worked at an agency for a long time and my life had been really based on those paychecks. And so building an S Corp helped me personally budget, but it also helped all of these pieces where I got to be both and. I got to be the business owner who can take the dividends out if I decide that I want to buy a new couch. And I also get to be the employee who gets a paycheck and doesn't have to think about the couch. And so it kind of offers you both of those pieces. And I always tell people, if an S Corp is something that you are interested in doing, moving forward, maybe not this year or next year, really looking at getting an accountant will be helpful. When you get an accountant, you also need a bookkeeper because somebody is going to have to be managing that $500 that dropped in. So it's really important that we also think of our business just not as the one-to-one and how much money we're getting per session, but also because there isn't a big money going out, all of this money is coming in. And so we want to be mindful of where that money is going.
That's a really good question, Alex.
What's the question? Hold on.
Yeah, are dividends taxed and are they only allowed to be used for business related expenses?
Yes, dividends are taxed, but at a lower rate. And it is one of the things that I love that my accountant says is it is your money. Your business is your money. If you decide that you want to use your business money to go to Taco Bell, you are welcome to do that. Or if you want to buy a nice new rug. But yes, you can pull money out. And I think that that's kind of some of that money wound places that I had to work through this year around, it is my money. I made it and I can pull it out if I feel like it. I can have it pull out or I can just use my paycheck. And honestly, I do both.
I've also heard with S Corps, and I don't have an S Corp, but after hearing you talk, it sounds like maybe I should switch next year, that it only starts to make sense tax-wise if you're earning at least 50,000 or more, and that especially makes sense when you have a group practice. That's generally what I hear from people.
Yes. And in the beginning.
Yeah, Rebecca, I believe you can.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's just a tax structure.
Yep. Because I'm my only employee. I'm the CEO and the janitor.
That's good. I like that. Andrea, do you have an accountant that you recommended to me, I believe?
Yes.
Okay.
I will put them in the chat. I have an accountant and a bookkeeper and a biller. I have 3 women who run my entire life and all talk to one another. And my biller talks to my bookkeeper talks to my tax lady. And that is how I kind of keep myself afloat. And so I will give you their names because they're all amazing.
Did someone put that they can't find me in Venmo? It's telling me it's the host that said that, but I thought I'm the host. Let me know if you still can't find me there. Okay. So Andrea, any other pieces you want to share with what you implemented this year, the S Corp, the spreadsheet implementation, and the outsourcing? And
the outsourcing, another piece that I outsourced it. So we have the bookkeeper, and I had to learn this, and maybe other people knew that, but I didn't. I didn't know the difference between an accountant and a bookkeeper. I never had one. And so what I learned, right, is that we have our accountants who do the big part, right? They do all the taxes. They're trying to help you for the taxes. But then we also need somebody, if you're not managing it, managing all the money that's coming in and all the money that's going out, right? So that they can look at the assets that you're holding, maybe the debts that you have, and they can really manage that money that's coming in and making sure that it's accounted for. Because oftentimes what can happen, especially if you're doing groups or workshops, or even when you work with clients, they thought they paid, you thought they paid, but nobody paid. And you didn't know, right? Because you're doing all of these other pieces. Yeah. And so a bookkeeper has been helpful. And the most important person in my life is my biller. She does all of my billing for insurance and private pay clients. I pay her monthly. Her name is Andrea, and she's great. And she manages all money. So she does my insurance verifications when a client comes on. She talks to private pay clients about the cost and how much it's going to cost. If somebody's insurance denies and they owe money, she follows up with them. She calls all the insurance companies and argues with them. And all the clients, in case they end up with a big bill and they didn't know, she talks through all of those pieces. And so if at all you struggle with talking about money to clients, or you don't like sitting on the phone and you've decided to take insurance, or you really just don't want to do your own billing, having a biller is important.
Yeah.
If that's what you...
Yeah. That's the number one thing people outsource eventually. Sorry, did I cut you off, Andrea?
Nope.
I got excited.
Nope.
Yeah, that's the number one thing that people eventually outsource. Yes. You can do it yourself when the transactions are few, but if you're full, eventually it's worth it for you to spend that hour providing services for $100 to $200 or more, and pay someone $30 to like do, many transactions for you. Andrea, does your person have experience with nonprofits?
No.
That's a good question, Louise. Yeah, that like that right there would be gold. Louise, I don't know if you're in there's a really great Facebook page here in Portland, I think called Boss Ladies PDX. Does that sound familiar to anyone? That's where I go when I need like community, like I need to find community resources. You've heard of it, Louise? Yeah, that's where I would ask someone there. Right. Any other questions with Andrea's section before I tell you very briefly what I learned this year or what I implemented? Andrea, can I add one thing about what you implemented from the spreadsheet? And you don't know what I'm going to say. So you don't know what you're saying. The main thing that I think you moved away from, and this is what I'll share on my part too, is you first of all, you looked at the insurances, right? And some of them were reimbursing incredibly low and others were like almost twice. So fixing that was important. But the other piece was realizing you love doing the trainings, and they're way more profitable, and they're just as, I'm guessing, just as meaningful as the individual services.
So adding trainings has definitely been helpful for income, right? It is, instead of doing a one-on-one and making $100, you do an hour and you make $1,000, right? So it is a one-on-one, and really when you're thinking about being in private practice, every hour is money. So the more money per hour is what helps you build so that you can pay things like taxes and get a new couch. And yes, the insurance piece was really important this year. When I first started my practice, I was private pay, and then I got on insurance panels. And I did my own credentialing because I didn't have money to have a credentialer. And so I got on whatever insurance panels would let me on. And that meant that it was lower paying insurance panels. And then following that, what I did is I took some time to go through and look at what are the clientele that I want? How much money do I need to be bringing in hourly to sustain the life that I want to sustain and be home with my kiddo when I want to? And then from there, what I did is I decided, these are insurance companies that I'm going to keep because they're really helpful and important. And these are the insurance companies that I'm going to let go of. One of the things that you want to be mindful of in keeping or letting go of insurance companies is it can't just be about money, because Some of the insurance companies that pay more money are looking for you to do more work. They're looking for you to do more buy-in. You got to do more calls. You got to do more case conceptualizations. You got to have access to your treatment plans. So it's also important to think about how long those things take you. And if you're really quick at it and you can do it in 20 minutes, not a problem. But if you really do struggle with managing treatment plans, case conceptualizations, and looking at people's prognosis, it could be harder to do some of the other insurance, because really now, instead of a client one-on-one in an hour, you got paid for that hour, but you're doing 2 hours of paperwork to make up for that hour. So it's also important.
Yeah. So you're actually making like half of that amount that that you're getting reimbursed at.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And just in general with insurance is knowing, you know, how hard it is to get out of the insurance once if you decide not to take it, what the expectations are for documentation. Usually Medicaid, which is in Oregon, that's Oregon Health Plan, has very high requests of documentation. So knowing all of that upfront helps a ton. Okay, I'm going to share briefly, and then I want to open up for Q&A and to do our raffle. So let me share this. So can everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay. What I implemented this year is a few things. I think actually it would make sense to start with the second one, but the main thing was last year I took a course with a really wonderful human that I really adore, named Annie Schuessler, and I recommend her for everyone. She has a great podcast, which I'm linking to here. And in that, I switched my business structure. So I have my clinical practice, which is mostly supervision groups. I have 10 groups over there, and hopefully I'll get to 15 because I just love groups and it's a nice, simple business structure. And then I started Lloyd Collective, which is almost entirely groups. I do one-off consultations, maybe 4 to 5 a month, which I love. But the whole thing of it is based around this program, which I created with Annie. Annie does a 5-week program. She teaches you how to set up a program, and then you do it. And so that was the biggest change for me, is I switched from one-on-one to doing a lot more groups. And at this point, I only do about 15 contact hours a week, which is, to me, that feels amazing. Some people love a lot of contact hours. Oh yes, that's right, Joanna, thank you. Joanna, if you have the link and want to put it in the chat, that'd be amazing. 15 a week is great. So I moved to that, and then the income ratio changed, just like we were talking about with Andrea, like workshops or other things are going to have higher earning ratio. And then what I learned, actually, this was in part working with Annie, is that a huge piece of Lloyd Collective could be fundraising, which I really love. And I did a whole podcast episode actually with Annie about the whole point of doing fundraising, and it's multifaceted, but I'll put that in the chat as well. But to me, that was a big exploration around how to use money in a different way and how to have, you know, the whole concept of doing well by doing good. So it's, you know, it's a nice way to serve other people. And then, sorry, I'm just noticing Rebecca's comment here, the super bill. Yes. Yeah, which is kind of a nice way, Rebecca, to avoid doing all that work yourself. But yeah, the whole concept of doing well by doing good. So having a business that's higher income earning, but then finding ways to contribute to the community in really meaningful ways. That was a huge thing for me to learn about money in this past year. And it makes it, in some ways, it increases your profitability, which sometimes is surprising to wrap your mind around, because we generally separate for-profit and nonprofit, charitable and, you know, money focused. And actually you can have a practice or a business that is profitable and is doing a lot of good at the same time. So those are the 3 main things I wanted to share. And then I wanted to open up for the group Q&A. So I'd love to know what questions you're all grappling with, because I would imagine reading my emails or hearing about this somewhere, you had a few questions you're trying to figure out. And Andrea and I would love, I'm speaking for you, Andrea, we'd love to help you with them. And Andrea and I we have some overlapping perspectives, but we also have different perspectives. So you'll get a few different ways to work with whatever you're mulling over.
I'll jump in if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great.
I am definitely struggling with setting fees. I haven't actually gotten started with seeing clients yet. I've got a few things that have to be in place first. But when I first was thinking about what I want my individual fee to be, and it's going to be out of pocket, starting out, I'm a CSWA, so I can't really be on insurance panels mostly, except maybe OHP, kind of. Anyway, when I first started, I was just looking at what other people were charging, and I saw a lot of like 100 to 120 range, and I was like, oh, that sounds that's a lot more per hour than I've ever made. But it's not really per hour. But anyway, I was looking at that, and then I saw the Hey Tiffany spreadsheet thing that a lot of people recommend, and I did that. And according to that, my fee should be more like 135, and I was like, okay, 135 sounds even better. I'll do that. And now I'm hearing that that's still too low, and that OHP actually reimburses CSWAs at a higher rate than that for single case agreement. So now I'm kind of back to square one, trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, go ahead, Andrea.
I think that setting fees is a personal decision. One of the things that I think I've ran into in setting fees is that what you want is different from what people are willing to pay. And I believe that oftentimes there's a belief that like if we say it, it will come. And while that is true, it also is looking at manageability and what is actually possible. So I'm a licensed clinician and I charge $135. And so I think that it's dependent on what you want to do. For me, I have gone up to $155. One of the things that comes up for me as I go up higher is that it loses the freedom that I want to have in my practice. That a lot of my style is about being casual. A lot of my style is about showing up as who you are and who I am, and I'm gonna wear a sweatshirt. And a lot of my style is sometimes I'm late because I'm scattered. And sometimes you're late because you had to pick up your kid. And for me to keep what I wanted in my clinical practice, it was important that I didn't get any little bugs. And as I went up in price, I recognized that I got a few little bugs. And I think that how you work through that is up to you. For some people, they work through it. Maybe it's seeing somebody, talking to a business coach, working through that. For me, it changes the demographic of who I'm going to see. And so what I always ask myself is, what am I willing to pay for a therapist weekly? If I can't pay it, clients can't pay it. And so if I'm willing to pay $135, I'm going to charge $135. If I'm willing to pay $175, then I'm going to charge $175. That is how I do it. But as I always tell my interns, it's a personal decision. It is really about your understanding of what makes you want to show up, right? We don't want it so low that it's not worth showing up and you're just spinning your wheels. And we don't want it so high that you're going to mark out a good portion of the people that you see. Primarily, I see all Black folks who have never been to therapy or distrust therapy. And as they see a higher number, they have more distrust. And so for me, it's a really important balance to allow clients to still want to come, and me being okay showing up in my community. Sometimes my clients are in my community. Sometimes they're at like an event I go to, and I want to be able to say with no hesitation what my fee is. And at 155, I couldn't do that, and I hesitated. And so I want to make sure that the fee that I'm charging, I can walk out into my community and feel comfortable and say, I feel like that is an appropriate fee for me.
Andrea, I'm curious about when you, with your sticker price fee, which is, you know, like the highest one, and then you sign up, like you get paneled for an insurance, are they only paying up to your sticker price, or do they say, hey, this is just where we reimburse everyone? You could have a lower fee or a higher fee. This is our number.
They don't care. The insurance company does not care about how much you charge. Your individual fee, they got thousands of therapists. So every insurance company pays different, and to be truthful, it's non-negotiable. It's just non-negotiable. It is what it is. And you got to make it work. And it's different for everybody, right? Because every insurance company is different. And so sometimes I want to be aware that yes, charging what the insurance company is charging, but those people likely wouldn't go to therapy if they didn't have insurance.
Yeah.
Right. So we want to be clear about who you're seeing, right? If you are trying to see upper middle class folks who maybe work at Nike and make 150 a year, 150 ain't a problem, right? Like there's a different demographic. That's not who I see. So I have to be mindful of you got to be mindful of your niche.
Yeah. The other thing that I saw with someone that I was helping build their practice is somebody came to them that their car insurance was paying for all of the treatment because they had gotten in a car accident. And this person was still charging relatively low. They were still kind of figuring out their fees. I think it was under 100. And so that's what they got reimbursed at. And what I told them was, this is my perspective, and I really like what you're sharing as well, Andrea, because I think there's a lot of integrity and relationship to it. And what I told them with the insurance is like, you want to have a top tier fee. So if somebody's coming and their insurance is paying for it, you're getting reimbursed at like this really good rate. And it allows for you to serve a lot more people at your middle and your lower rate. So most hospitals, if you go and look at their services, they have a sticker price that nobody pays, but it's their sticker price, and that's there, and you can use it when you need to, kind of like as a tool. But then you can also offer these other tiers of services. I have someone else in private practice, and I love how they did this. They did 3 tiers, and they said, hey, if you make this amount or more in your household income, this is what I charge. This amount, they do 3 tiers that way. And I really like that too, because it's so transparent. But it is incredibly personal as well. Mm-hmm. Any other questions around setting your fees?
Any other questions?
Yeah. What other questions?
This is the moment.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Bianca did ask, can you share about options for buying your own health insurance? Non-employer subsidized health insurance seems very pricey.
Yes, it is. You need to get an insurance broker, or you need to just, that's really the big cost, right? Like when I go on to my Clinicians of Color forum, or I go talk to other private practice individuals, that is a big cost, is your insurance. There really isn't much way around that. It is kind of like, oftentimes people who start off private practice aren't making a lot of money. So sometimes you can get state insurance because you're not making that much money. But oftentimes people who start off in private practice are paying for their own insurance, or they're like me and I wasn't insured for a year. So unfortunately, we work for the healthcare system, and the healthcare system can sometimes be the barrier to why people don't go into private practice.
But it's still worth it. I'll say that. Yeah, it's still worth it. And
any other questions?
Let's do a raffle, and then if people have follow-up questions, they have follow-up questions. So I want to assign everyone a number somehow. Actually, everybody pick a number between 1 and 50 and put it in the chat, so then we'll see if there's a duplicate. And we have 5 coffee gift cards and then consult with each of us. So just keep an eye on the chat and make sure no one else has your number. I know it's moving kind of quickly. Here, I'm going to take off this. Oh, that's easier. So we've got 43, 4, 24, 37, 11, 33, 30, 37, 15, 35, 27, 39. Okay, I don't think we repeated any numbers.
Oh.
All right. So let's do the coffee gift cards first. And what I'm going to ask is that you email me 37's repeated. Oh, thanks, Amalia. Okay. Who? Good.
Amelia will
Great.
change to 21.
Nice job.
Good
Close
number.
save. Okay. We don't have a 21, right? Okay. And yeah, I'm going to ask you to give me your, I think the best way to do it is give me your email address and then I'll follow up with you afterwards. Okay. So we did between 1 and 50. So this is the first coffee gift card. Anybody a 24? I'm realizing this will actually take a while the way I just set it up. I think it's better if, Andrea, do you want to close your eyes and then put your finger on? Yeah, Bianca, it is. Do you want to close your eyes and then pick one? I think that'll be better than using Google.
Just pick a number or pick a square.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, do that.
Okay. I mean, this is awesome. If you know me, I love stuff like this. I'm like, great. Gifts to people. Okay. Joanna was the first one I picked.
All right. Someone's frozen. Who's frozen? Michaela. Michaela's frozen.
I'm back.
Okay.
I'm back.
Okay, good.
Hey, Rebecca was the second person I picked.
All right.
Bianca.
Okay, and Andrea, you can see everybody on your screen, right? Both
believe
panels.
so. Yeah.
Okay, good. I want to make sure you can see the second grouping.
Okay, we're just picking. This is so, I love this. Alex.
Okay.
One more?
Okay, yeah, one more coffee card.
I guess I won't pick myself. Luis?
Oh, yeah.
Luis, you got it.
Luis, you got it. Okay. Will you all just make sure, Bianca, I got yours. Joanna, I think I have yours. Rebecca, I have yours. Alex, will you email me? And then Louise, I have your email address. Okay. Rebecca, this is for 1 hour with you and 1 hour with me. So do you want to do?
So why don't we do it so that I'm not just picking that? Why doesn't everybody, starting at 1, we're just going to put a number in there. We're just going to put a number. We have 18 people. We all have master's degrees. We can figure it out. We are good. So first person, put a number in there, 14. Okay, don't go above 20.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's what we did wrong before. You're right.
Yep. We have 2 4s, so if you were a 4, you got to move. 2 9s.
Andrea, you were the right person for this.
All right, good choice, Sarah. Hey, everybody pick a number below 20. There you go. Okay.
Is everyone in there?
I think so.
Okay.
If you're not, you're missing out.
Andrea, if someone's already won a coffee card, does that mean they're not in the running for the?
No.
Okay.
Means that person's just real lucky. Going back.
So now what are we doing?
Now you're going to draw the numbers. Pick the numbers.
Oh, no,
Everybody has a number. Everybody knows who they are.
Okay.
Do your little random thing and then yell out if it's you, y'all.
Number 3.
Who's 3? All right. Karen.
All right, Karen.
Exciting.
We didn't distinguish if that's for you or for me, Andrea.
Well,
Karen, you've worked with me a lot. Do you want to take one for Andrea, or do you? What's your preference?
Yeah,
cool.
that would be great.
Great.
Right. Okay.
Yay.
Random number generator. Number 5.
Who's 5?
Is there a 5?
Okay, do it again.
Okay, here we go. 15.
One more time.
Okay. Number 7.
All right, Alex.
Alex, you're lucky today.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's fun. We should do this every time. All right, so I'll email you all for follow-up. Karen and Andrea, I can connect you two by email. Yeah.
Great.
All right, any questions? We have about just under 10 minutes.
Any questions?
Can I ask
money,
some
about
random
practice?
tax
Yeah.
questions that you may not know?
Sure.
We know them. We know the answers.
So with your if you're doing a practice out of your home,
Mhm.
like what of your home fees can you claim for your business fees as your business fees?
So so in your home, you can claim the room. So like the square footage of the room that you are doing your practice from, right? So if your whole house is 1,500 feet and 500 of that is the office that you're using, that would be your office. And then you would do that math. I can't do it. That my tax lady did that. Whatever math that is.
There's a formula.
Yeah, there's a formula.
Okay.
And then it would be things like your printer that you're using, the paper that you're buying, your phone that you're using, your internet that you're using. It could be utilities. You have a new desk. Anything that you are using for your office is going to be a tax write-off. One of the things that you want to remember, and one of the things that I did wrong, so that's how I know how to do it right this time, is that when you start your business, you need to get a business bank account, because you are not going to want to mix those. Now they're going to get mixed, and if you go and pay your utilities, right, with your personal account, but it's supposed to be deducted by your business, it gets sticky. So once you get your LLC or set up your business, whatever structure you choose, take that form, the EIN number that you're going to get your tax ID, and you take your tax ID form to the bank, and they create a business bank account. And from that bank account, that's where all your money will drop in, and that's how you can pay things. And then your bookkeeper or you, at the end of the year, it will already be in there, and you won't have to take it out of your personal account and track it down.
Lori, I'm realizing we didn't answer your question about getting scammed. So Lori, do you want to email me that, and I'll see, because I'll answer you there.
I have an example of a scam.
Of getting scammed? Oh yeah, they always do that.
One.
As soon as you register your LLC, they're going to send you paperwork that looks like it's from the state and tell you to pay them. That is an example. Andrea, are you going to share your photographer info as well?
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes.
So I'd love to, and you're also welcome to, everyone probably has my email address, but you're also welcome to send any follow-up questions. Sorry, I can't think of what my email address is while I talk.
There's not a dot in the beginning.
Yeah, you're welcome to send any follow-up questions to me, and then Andrew and I can both answer them. What I wanted to do before we wrap up is hear about one takeaway you got, or one thing you're going to do either differently or keep doing with your money as a result of our conversation today. Oh yeah, you're welcome, Leslie. Yeah, what are your takeaways?
I liked the spreadsheet the way it was set up. Offer 1, offer 2, offer 3. I have a pretty complex spreadsheet that I've been developing to set my fees. And I think I want to simplify it a little bit. I appreciated that structure.
Yeah, you're welcome, Rebecca. whenever I'm feeling stuck with my business, I go back to that spreadsheet and I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I mean, it's not all about money, but that structure itself just helps organize it. Bianca said, get a business bank account. Yeah.
So I've been struggling with the reimbursement rate, and Andrea, hearing you talk like made a big impact in me, because I also want to just work with Latinos or BIPOC, LGBTQ folks. And
Alex, you cut out.
You froze. Oh,
yeah.
you froze.
Yeah, you froze, Alex.
Go back. Start from the beginning. We want to hear it.
It says my internet connection is unstable, but basically what I'm trying to say is the reimbursement rate has been the big piece, just hearing you talk about it and being a person of color and what you want to identify with when it comes to like seeing folks in the community. And so the integrity piece is something that I want to hold on to. And yeah, like I want to make it affordable, but also like profitable for myself. So that's something that I took from that, is like setting my fee at a place where my people can come to me and not feel like they're going to be burning money through their pockets as well. So I appreciate that.
I think that's the
Yeah.
hard part. Setting your fees is hard. It's challenging, and it shifts, right? It will shift every year. Every first of the year, everybody changes their fees. But I think that is an important piece, because we are a community, and I want to be able to be comfortable.
I love that. Yeah, thanks for walking us through like your thinking process and then how it feels to be in your community saying your pricing. Like that was really clear hearing that. Amalia said you're going to think about, you're interested in learning more about the S Corp. Yeah.
Yep.
Michaela is in the beginning stages. So it's helpful to hear all of that. Lori, learning about the super bills. Lori,
Yep.
you did my 8-week program. And if you go back to the money section, there's a template for super bills as well. Leslie, you really like the tiered payment. If anyone's interested in that tiered payment that I shared that one of my supervisees uses, I asked them if I could share it with other people because I loved it so much. So email me and I will send it to you. Yeah.
And if you don't know what a super bill is, a super bill is simply just a receipt that you give a client after they pay you so that they can send it to insurance to get reimbursed. One of the things that I've learned along the way is to never promise somebody that they will get reimbursed. There is no guarantee that they will get reimbursed. And also being mindful that if you're giving them a super bill, you need a diagnostic code. So that's where things shift.
And don't you also need a CPT code on there? That's my understanding, is you need to see the CPT codes as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll need the CPT code, which will generally be the same. 90637, I think it is, if I remember, which is the hour. And then it will also add diagnosis and then your credentials at the end. If you have simple practice, it will create it for you.
I was curious if LPCAs can provide super bills, or do you need to be fully licensed?
No, you can. So I know for LPCs, so I'm an LPC, and I know LMFTs, you can provide a super bill. You don't need to be licensed to provide a super bill. You just need an NPI number.
What about your associates? So are your supervisees providing super bills, Andrea? You do have them do that? Okay.
If you want to, some people want it. I mean, in my 3 years, I've only had 2 people ever ask. And I'm 50-50 insurance, private pay. Oftentimes if they're paying. Super bill is, I think, for those who maybe want to get reimbursed, but the reimbursement is slow. So it's not an exchange.
Yeah.
The reimbursement rate for associates is lower than it is for licensed clinicians. So that's another thing that people should know.
Yeah.
Masters are much lower than folks who have like a PsyD or another, graduate clinical, another doctorate level clinical degree.
Yep. They're tiering it all. So all credentials they're tiering, all experiences they're tiering. So it's kind of just always remembering that that's just what the system is. They're not going to want to pay you. So it's always going to be tiered. So I always encourage my clients to know that you are working uphill against a system, and it probably could be hard. So just be aware that you may get a little pushback when you call, or they may not say you uploaded it when you put it on the portal. So I always like to just let clients know that it can be a walkthrough process.
Yeah, set the expectations. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for joining. We raised $530 for Owls and SU services. So Louise, I'll send you a check. Thanks so much for donating, everyone. That puts us over 7,000 since Andrea and I started a year ago. Oh yeah, Sarah put, if I can't pay it, clients can't pay it. Yeah.
Yep. Remember that. Don't go charging things that you wouldn't pay yourself. So it's always a good rule.
Yes.